Trevor William Church from Haunt. We're from California. I play guitar and I sing. I guess the early years, we would go on some of the tours. Like I was really little, but we would, usually hang out for a couple weeks. He'd be out for 6 months at a time back then. They do 6 months on, 6 months off. So we spent a lot of time, around the Bay Area and doing all that stuff, and then my dad, Sammy Hagar left his, he went and joined Van Halen. And then my dad, he joins a bunch of like Bay Area bands. Back in the day, he was in this band called Bob Banks Project. And Bob Banks was a big figure in the San Francisco heavy metal and punk scene. He was basically the promoter. So like he threw all the events and everything. But my uncle Paul, my mom's brother, was a drummer, and he played in like a LA Sunset Strip glam metal band. Their hair was like up to here. They were called Cry Wolf. So I spent a lot of time going to their shows. So that was kind of like the first introduction to like, I guess, going to shows and what have you. I was around that a lot, and yeah, that's my first like things that I can remember really, of like going to the shows and stuff.
Here we go.
I think it was like there was a lot of music that I was listening to. So I had an older cousin. He was 5 years older than me. I started skateboarding in 1987, and my dad would take me down to San Francisco, and I would go skate all over the place. He'd take me to all these spots, and a lot of the times back in the 80s, like there would be like a boom box there at the skate sessions. Like the older guys would be skating, and they listened to like the Misfits, Dead Kennedys, Slayer, Metallica, Exodus, and bands like that. That's kind of like some of the first introduction to like that kind of music, I suppose, was that, like just being around, and Thrasher magazine actually like had a lot of like profile stuff and music stuff as well. So like whatever was in there I'd listen to, and then like obviously like the skate videos that were coming out from Pal Peralta. I'd wait till the end credits to see what the songs were and stuff, but I mean some of them were really, like Stacy Peralta put some corny like 80s shitty music in it, but sometimes there was some good shit. Like there's this movie called Thrashin', and it had this song by the Circle Jerks, Wild in the Streets. I remember I loved that song. I was like obsessed with it. So it was it was like a blend of stuff, because like also like during that time, like there was like the rap movement was like really gaining a lot of momentum, and Anthrax was doing shows with like Public Enemy, and I went to those shows. I was tiny. I was like a little dude, like 11, maybe 12. So it was kind of, I went to a lot of shows. So my dad took me around all the shows that he was playing in San Francisco, and I'd go to these rehearsals, and one of the bands he was in the Bay Area, they actually shared a studio space with Dead Kennedys. So I would go there, and the Dead Kennedys would be rehearsing, and I'd be like, holy shit. I never talked to him. I think they may have been like, maybe waved at me a couple times, but it was like, it was like a rehearsal studio, so there was like multiple rooms and stuff, but they were in there all the time, and my dad used to go, the Dead Kennedys are in there, and I go, I used to write the DK logo on everything. I was like on fucking my school binder, my backpack, you know. Well, I was having some issues with the record label, and also just having some general issues stylistically, because I wanted to do more than just doom. It wasn't really like, I actually wanted to be more like a band like Witchfinder General, Pentagram, stuff like that. I was a little bit more trying to go towards that. St. Vitus, like the SST stuff, but obviously Black Sabbath and Ozzy as well was like always been an influence to me. And I just was having problems with Rise Above Records, and I couldn't really like put out like the amount of music that I wanted to. I wanted to do 7 inches, I wanted to do splits, I wanted to do all kinds of different things, and it wasn't really in the cards. And I kind of just wrote Luminous Eyes on a fluke, not even really going like I want to be in a traditional metal band. And then like I just started writing a couple more. It was like actually really slow, and if you think about like how many records and songs I put out in a short period of time as Haunt, the beginnings was incredibly slow because I didn't really want to have 2 bands. I didn't want to rehearse 2 bands. I didn't want to do a lot of the things. And then my wife was actually, and her brother were the ones that were like, I had showed them the demos of that I've been doing for Luminous Eyes. They're like, this is really, really good. You should release this. And then I sent it to another friend of mine that was doing all my artwork for Beastmaker, Paul Abram from Bronca Studios. And I sent him like 2 songs, Luminous Eyes and Inspire Burns. And literally like 30 minutes later, I had the Haunt logo, which I already told him. I was like, I'm thinking about calling this like Haunt. And then the Haunt logo came about and the Luminous Eyes cover. And then I was like, oh, well, I guess I have to. He's like, you need to put it out. And I was like, all right. So it first came out as like a digital EP, 3 songs. And then I added the 4th later with the Shadow Kingdom release that happened in like, I think it came out in late October 2017. And we hadn't even really played. It was just me and Daniel Wilson on drums. And I did all the work for it, really. You know, I did all the bass, all the guitar, all the vocal stuff, and all the songwriting and production of it all. And it was really a demo. I didn't really anticipate it like kind of taking off how it did. Fenriz from Dark Throne put it on his album of the week. Next thing you know, I have all these followers all of a sudden just overnight. And I was on tour with Beastmaker here in Europe, actually, with Stone Jesus. And Shadow Kingdom was like, you really should consider doing full length. And I was like, I don't have any fucking songs. I was like, this is it. Like, I was like, I've got my other band I'm working on. I don't have anything. And he's like, you could do it. So, you know, we struck a deal on what I needed to do the album. And it was actually a big, huge fiasco because the drummer, our drummer Daniel, he ended up having stage 5 cirrhosis of the liver and was hospitalized, and like, so I didn't really get to do the album the way I wanted to, but it still seemed to like move forward quite well. We actually finally just like we redid the drums just recently because I felt like we kind of needed to close that chapter of him being ill, because it was just like, the performance wasn't what we were practicing. You know what I mean? Like we were practicing it, and then we start recording it, and then the fucking next thing you know, he's hospitalized for the remainder of the time. It wasn't until about right before we did our first tour in March. So we recorded the album and started recording the album in like January, and it wasn't like I was just at that time I was just like, oh, I was ready to scrap the whole thing, but I kept sending Shadow Kingdom the stuff that I had. He's like, just put it out. He's like, I like it, and I'm like, all right. I was like, fuck it, whatever, let's do it, and that's how it all began. I mean, it's just something that just I stumbled into more than I was something that I was like envisioning, because like I was Beastmaker. My drummer Andy, he's like my best friend in the world, so it was really hard to like. He didn't really want to do that style of music. He wanted to do doom metal, so I was like, well, you know, it was a hard transition because I preferred like at that time to play with my best friend and travel with my best friend, and it was something I had to like kind of come to terms with and go, all right, well, this needs to sit back for a minute, and then I'm gonna see how this does, because there was just a lot of demand for us to go out. Like we immediately before I even had a band, we didn't have a bass player for Burst in Flame. I played bass on the record. We had Hell's Heroes Festival, which is an awesome festival in Houston, Texas. And then we had got the offer literally like to go on tour with Municipal Waste like almost immediately. And we hadn't even played. So off we are for our first tour. We did it with this band, Hellfire, really good friends from the Bay Area. And we went and played Hell's Heroes. And then at that time, we had a bass player that we had been using. It wasn't working out. I needed to find someone permanent. And then in comes Taylor. And then we have a band. And after that, like I literally wrote Icarus Could Fly immediately, because I was like, all right, now we have a band, let's have a band album instead of being all like, you know, me playing multiple things on it, you know, kind of bring it. I write all the music, but I wanted it to be presented with like everybody playing, you know what I mean? So with Haunt, I had like the first thing that I told myself when I started writing Luminous Eyes was like, I'm just gonna write whatever I'm feeling and like things about my personal life, because Beastmaker was more about this like vision of like horror stories, horror films, and I was just kind of just like trying to portray that at that time, and I was like really itching to start writing lyrics that were more based off of things that have happened to me and things that, you know, kind of like are uplifting and a little bit less dark. I wanted to like move away from the dark and kind of go into the light, kind of in a way, and start writing music as like a therapeutic thing for me, because a lot of really tragic shit happened before Beastmaker. I lost 3 of my cousins in a pretty horrific car accident. My cousin Mike died when I was 19. Then my cousin Danny, who I grew up playing music with, he died when I was 25. And then my cousin Brandon died when I was 29. Like there was a lot of things that had happened. I had to also like quit drinking entirely. I had a little bit of alcohol issues going on, so I left that behind. And then, you know, when you do a huge life change like that, there's this really like, it's like a snowball effect, because all of a sudden everything is like a foreign entity. Like your friends that you used to go out with, all of a sudden you're like, I don't really like hanging out with those guys anymore, because all they want to do is go do that. I want to do something else. And that really inspired me to start getting into my music. And it took me a little while to really find whatever it is that I was doing. I never had sang, or like usually I just played guitar in people's bands. I was never like gonna be the vocalist, but since there was like such a lack of people to play music with in Fresno, I decided just to take it on and do my best. And so I just started penning stuff down and just writing as much as I could so I can like get better at my lyrics. And yeah, so I just found the inspiration within myself. Really, every song that I write has some sort of meaning. To be honest with you, every single one has something to do with that path. So I guess that kind of all that shit that happened, it led to something so much better. At the end of the day, I could look at it and go, well, everybody, you know, my family that's passed on, they you know, they'd be proud that like I picked myself up out of the fucking gutter and turned it into a positive thing and was able to move forward and keep doing what I really love to do. Well, like it's changed a little bit. Like the formula's changed as we were playing live. I really started to notice that I didn't really like soloing as much, and so now when I'm writing the songs, when I get to like the parts where the solos go, I actually like I keep John in mind. I can like almost mimic his solos in my brain, and so I kind of write around something that I know he could like really show off his skill, because I like the Burst in a Flame, I did most of the solos, he did like 3, and that was only because I had written it like, you know, I was trying to write it as fast as I could so I can put something out immediately, which is what Shadow Kingdom wanted. But generally it really hasn't changed all that much. I write everything alone in my studio. Generally what I do is like, it's kind of like I used to be really into the Beatles, and I was reading this Beatle book, and Paul McCartney and John Lennon used to try to write a song every day. So I kind of started like going, you know what, that's fucking genius. Like, you should write as much as you can, so you're like training, you're training yourself to become better. There's like, sometimes it might tend to go into the same stylistic area, but you're getting better, you're stronger. The lyrics might be stronger, the focus might be stronger. So I kind of took to that, and I don't really write a song every day, but I try to go out there and just write a riff every day, and then I just build around it. And then once it starts coming together, it's very fast. Like I have a thing where it's like this, like once I start like getting the structure down, once I have a verse and a chorus, I go immediately to try to write a bridge, then I write intros, outros later. And like literally once that's done, it's like to the drum set or program the drums in. I do both. It just matters on how I'm feeling that day. If I want to fucking try to be the drummer, it's sometimes doesn't go over as well as I like, so I have to resort to other things. But just write the whole thing, and and then I just kind of send it to the guys. And like when we record, like sometimes like when me and Taylor are like sitting there and he's laying down the bass, we'll come up with things on the spot there, because sometimes when I'm doing the bass in the studio, sometimes the bass line just comes to me automatically. Sometimes I'm just trying to go, okay, get the fucking thing done, just play the root notes and just move to the next. I got like 30. I have so many fucking songs queued right now. Like I can put out 4 albums this year if I really like sat down. I got tons of riffs just pouring out constantly. The next album's done. I have an EP written that will be released this summer. I was gonna release the other full length this year, but as we started moving along this year, especially during this tour, I started realizing like there's some songs that I really want to play live, and I don't think we would get to them if I put out another record. So I decided to push it aside till January and just release this EP with, because the split 7 inches are sold out, and I really like the 2 songs that I wrote for them, and so the EP, I'm gonna bring those into that, like re-recorded. So I wanted to have something to where it's like everybody can like listen to it. It's not on Spotify or any of that stuff yet, so I want to put that stuff out and kind of kickstart a fall tour as well in the United States. Have a new release, you know. I would definitely just say like maybe the strength of the songwriting. I've never really been a guy that's like super huge into like how production is and stuff like that. I do a little bit, but like at the end of the day, I'm just trying to get the songs out there and because there's just so many, and then you know I kind of had that like growing up in the punk rock, you know, world that I did. My first bands were all punk bands. I just kind of feel like sometimes the demo has more love. Sometimes the first thing's like you can't, if you keep going over and over again. I mean, it's hard to say because I still have this like DIY ethic that I really enjoy. I don't really like having people like around me when I'm recording. I like to be alone, like isolated. I feel way more comfortable with that. I've recorded in studios before, and I feel like I'm like rushing all the, you know, I'm like we're on the clock. At home, I just kind of, it's at my leisure. If I go in and like I'm not feeling it that day, I stop, and then you know I can come back later, and then I am, and it doesn't matter. And that's kind of how I do things. But as far as development goes, I would just say like my guitar playing has definitely improved a lot. That's something I worked really hard on. And then another thing is like obviously since like I haven't really been a singer for very long. I think Beastmaker's first EP came out in 2015, so it's only been 5 years that I've really been like, all right, I had to learn how to play guitar and sing. I had no fucking clue what I was doing when I started. I was like, oh shit, this is way harder than I thought it was gonna be. So I kind of been, you know, I was like, at first I was kind of riding around like, am I gonna be able to play this and sing at the same time? And now I feel much more comfortable in that, like, you know, writing the vocals and being a little bit more technical with it and experimenting a little bit more with it. I like it's a weird thing because like some of the people in the traditional metal community don't really like the way I sing, but I don't really care. I just do what I do because I do it for myself. You know, like I said, it's like a therapy, and like I feel like I will improve even more as the records go on, and I'm not gonna stop playing music like ever. So it's like this is just the beginnings. You know what I mean? Like I like think about like it takes some bands 2.5 years just to get started. We're like 2.5 years in. I've written fucking. You know, I'm starting to get a catalog where we can't even play all the songs. You know, it's like you know you get to play like maybe 10 like in the States. Generally we're opening for bigger bands, we only get like 35-40 minutes, so we can only play 8 songs. That's like we have like 30, you know what I mean? So 22 of them are left in the dust. When we come to here to Europe, we get to play a little bit longer, and you know, so you know we're starting to get to do that. But I mean I don't really think about a lot of the things very deeply when it comes to the song. Like I said, I just kind of let it come out, like very naturally and organically, and I just almost pin it immediately. I just there's something with the riff. If I like the riff, I'm able to write to it real quickly. It happens in 5 minutes. I'll have written all the lyrics, just boom. Maybe it's the marijuana, I don't know. Because I'd definitely be smoking in the studio, like hard. People that watch my live videos on Facebook definitely know I got a joint in my mouth and coffee in the other. So maybe the joint and the coffee combination is like it's the developing on a coffee drinking and weed smoking. I have so much stuff, and I don't really look at songs as B-sides, because there's something that I've learned in my life is like I'm much older and way more mature than I ever was in my life. You know, being a dad, being a husband, and being a really responsible person, is that like you cannot dictate what's an A side and what's a B side, and there's no major labels giving me millions of dollars saying no, that's a B side, no, it's a B side, because sometimes. You know, my least favorite song is somebody else's favorite song, so I can't dictate that, so I just release everything I write. It doesn't matter if it's the greatest song or my worst song. I'm just trying to get it out there so people could hear what I'm just doing. If it's good or bad, I don't really care. So Asteria it was just an accident kind of thing. Yeah, it was an accident. We were on tour with Hellfire, and Jake Nunn, the vocalist of Hellfire, we were just hanging out, and he's like, "Hey, check out my old band," and that's Asteria. They were already formed, and he starts showing me this stuff, and I'm like, "This is fucking brilliant." I was like, "This is so good. Why aren't you guys playing this stuff live?" And he was just like, "No, nobody's really interested in doing it." And I was like, "Well, when I get home, why don't me, you, Mike and Jake were already in the band. I was like, why don't we just all form together, me, John, you and Mike, and start recording these, let me produce them." Because when I heard them, they're a little bit long, and I'm not a big fan of like 7-minute epic long songs. So he brought it to the studio, we started recording it, I started cutting it apart. I was like, this is gone, this is gone, this is gone, and we made it into more of a like structure, how I feel like the song needed to be heard. And I think for some people that may have like found it on Spotify and they listened to the original version of Soldiers of Tribulation to the new version of Soldiers of Tribulation, you could hear like my influence in the music and stuff. And we're gonna be playing live. We're gonna bring it out there, and
sick.
And we're gonna bring it live. That's kind of the goal this year, is to really bring that to fruition. And as far as the label goes, it's more of one of those things where I'm just trying to like put stuff out with the DIY ethic again, and just kind of just remove ourselves from being tied down to labels and things like that, because I feel like with the way that music is released now, it's not as important to be signed anymore, because everybody's online. So if they want to get in touch with you about whatever you're doing, it's really tangible. So like if somebody's like, I want this Asteria record, it's not like they have to like, oh my god, where am I gonna get it? It's like, boom, it's right there for you. So, and it also helps us with, having more control, less, not being tied down, not hating anybody as well, because every band hates their record label. I mean, it's just a fucking fact. I've been around for a while, and like everybody's like, fuck my label, they suck. That's generally what most people think, because they're, it's hard to be a musician. It's a very poor, starving artist ordeal. So it just kind of made sense for me to start something to where I could help bands that like are my friends get a start, because like I've been getting like a lot more press lately with bigger publications like Decibel, Revolver, Def Forever. They've done like a lot of stuff on me, and I want to use that to my advantage to like help my friends like move up in the world without, and I'm like, here's my way of doing things, you try it because it's working, you know what I mean? So that's really the goal, is just to really like kind of just help my friends and sign bands that I don't really sign bands. I'm like, here, we're gonna do a release of some sort and try to promote you guys and get people to know who you guys are, and that's really what that's all about. Also to have like I've joined union with Shadow Kingdom with the releases. They all say church recordings on it as well, so it's like a joint release, so I have control over my music.
Thank you guys.
I mean, like there's the difference. A lot of it is just kind of I mean, it's really hard to say, because the tours that we've done in the USA, like we went out with Municipal Waste, so obviously like we did we did like 27 dates with them, so obviously those were amazing, like every night. So it's really like if I'm gonna, I can't really give Europe a good judgment, because we haven't been out with a band at that level yet here. So we're playing clubs like we would play at home. So I wouldn't really say there's much difference at all. Like as far as your general club of 100 to maybe 200 people, it's relatively very similar. A lot of people like Europe better. I know that. I just like to play, so I don't really like go into it with a mindset of anything. I'm like, I'm here to play music and rock out, and that's what I'm here for. And the difference that I'm seeing as far as from our first European tour to now is we definitely got the word spread a little bit more, and I think with some of the press from Def Forever and having played, some decent shows around Europe, it's helped us a lot, and I'm starting to see that like getting over here is worth our time, and it's a lot of fun, and hopefully we can continue to do it. We won't be back this year though. I'm grounded. My wife has grounded me. She's like, Europe twice in 6 months, done. No more. So I gotta wait till next year. One thing that I've always been big on is like people that are struggling with things in their own personal life, and I get a lot of people that message me and tell me their stories about their struggles, and I just make sure I try to take the time out of my personal life and try to give them insight to inspire them to sometimes it's just like quitting drinking, like some people have real alcohol problems, and I had one, and I did it all. I quit drinking without any sort of help, and just I just try to tell people like, hey, like, you don't really need that. It's not really going to do you that much good. It's like, if you want to be a productive, happy person every day, you can't be hungover. You can't be broke either, because that happens too. You spend all your money drinking. How are you going to buy all this expensive fucking gear? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes you want to buy a nice guitar, you got to drop $2,000. But if you've been out drinking all week, and then you have to go to work, there's all these things that happen with people that, you don't realize it till it's too late, and then, you're in this hole. And so I just try to be there as an ear, just to just listen to people sometimes, and also just kind of, like I said, like, inspire my friends to like play music. Like, sometimes like I've had bands hit me up like, no label wants anything to do with this, and I'm like, I'll put this out and you guys keep working hard. Like, you need to work at your craft. Like, don't give up just because some fucking shitty ass label doesn't think you're good enough. You're good enough. Like, that's the kind of motivation and that I'm trying to instill into people. Is like, you could do anything you put your mind to if you're willing to work for it. And sometimes people just need to hear that kind of shit. It's not even that philosophical. It's just real basic,
Thank you guys.
Definitely having more kids, raising kids, and hopefully, you know, like I have a family of musicians. My dad, my mom's cousin, played drums in Heart and many bands, and my uncle Paul was a glam metal rocker. And then I got like a lot of people in my family play music, so I'm hoping that I just get to, like, you know, share that with them like my dad did, and be a good dad, and, you know, keep writing as many songs as I can, and then, you know, try to help more of my friends out if they need me to, you know, be there to pick them up in their musical stuff. I've got like all kinds of stuff already in line this year for people that I think are really talented and need a little boost of confidence. So I'm gonna be doing some stuff, so you'll see all that. So the you know, like, I don't really look at 5-year goals. My life goal is just to be awesome and be like a positive person, and not be like some dark shitty cloud, you know. Just want people to enjoy themselves at our shows, enjoy our albums, and take it with a grain of salt sometimes. I mean, like, I try to be in the light with Haunt, not in the dark. So like when you read my stuff, it's like you can kind of see where I'm going with my goals, is just to, you know, be you know, have fun, enjoy the time you have here. It could be really short, you know, and I watched it happen to me personally. I watched people I love die way too young, and when that happens, it really triggers something. You're like, my time could come at any time. Did you live today to your fullest? You know, that's something I ask myself every day. I don't fucking wake up and go, ugh. I wake up and go, all right, let's fucking do it. Like, whatever we're doing, whatever I'm doing that day, I'm doing it 110% every time. You know what I mean? Whether it be I'm just hanging out with my kid, I'm like, all right, well, we're playing all day. We're gonna figure out something that you like to do. You know what I mean? If he's crying or whatever, I'm like, I don't care. Like, let's what do I gotta do to not make you cry? Let's have fun. And that's how my outlook on things are. That's my goals.
Good goals.
Yeah. I would say keep rocking out, keep going to shows, keep supporting underground music, and you know, if you want to check out what we're doing, you can go to haunthenation.bandcamp.com, follow us on Instagram, Haunt the Nation, and watch our Facebook Live stuff. You could ask me questions, whatever you want. You need a heavy metal life coach, you know, I'm here. Yeah.
All right.